Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 37th Stately Office Hours. Look how many squares we've got. Isn't it exciting?
Filling up.
So this is where us, the Stately team, tell you what we've been working on at Stately and on XState, where we give you lots of cool demos. We've got that coming up today. We answer your questions and we get your feedback. So if you have anything you want to share with us, please join us in the comments on YouTube. We can share those on the screen. It's pretty cool. You can tweet us at StatelyAI on Twitter. You can join our Discord, which is at discord.gg/xstate. You can even mention us on LinkedIn. Today we are streaming on LinkedIn for the first time. And if you are a LinkedIn streamer, please let us know how it goes because we've not tried this before. I just thought it would be fun about 15 minutes before we started. So we have new faces for you to meet. So let's get on with the introductions to the team. I'll kick us off. I am Laura Kalbag, and I do designer and developer relations and a bunch of other stuff for Stately. David, how about you?
Hi, I'm David, founder of Stately, creator of XState, and partial approver of all of these new faces that you see. So
you only partially approve of them.
I was part of the process of convincing them to get on board.
Great. And Matt, who are you?
Who am I? I'm Matt. I'm a developer advocate at Stately and very excited to be joined by this. I like that we've got them all on the middle row as well. It's kind of like they're being flanked by Anderist at the bottom.
Yeah, so let's move on to Anderist next. Matthias, you're last in the screen and next in my lineup.
Hi, I'm Andres, and I'm David Stocker. As you can see, I'm hiding in his famous Twitter background. And apart from that, I'm an open source contributor and working on XState itself full-time right now.
And next up, Kevin. If you haven't met Kevin before, you must have missed last week's office hours. Kevin, who are you?
Hi, everyone. Kevin. I'm based in the United States. I'm a software engineer. And yes, last week I was the newest face, but things move very quickly in this industry, as we all know, and it's Stately. So I'm going to pass it on to even newer people.
And now with our new faces, I'm going to go in technical order of joining just by the virtue that one is in an earlier time zone than the other. So Anders, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe tell us how you came to work with Stately?
Sure thing. Well, my name is Anders. I'm a software engineer living in Denmark, and I've been a fan of XState for years, so I'm very thrilled and humbled to join this dream team all around me. I saw that Stately was looking for new engineers and designers, and I basically just took a chance, thinking, okay, if this is a possibility, even though it's a long shot, let me try it. And I got further and further in the application process and ended up here today, so I'm very thrilled to be here.
And we're really glad to have you. And last but absolutely not least, we have Nick, who it's very early morning for Nick, so we have to bear that in mind and treat him gently in these office hours. Nick, who are you and how did you come to join Stately?
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm Nick, as was said. I'm a product designer, and so I came to join Stately because I've been following XState for a while and big fan. And I saw David post that they were hiring, so applied and thought it was really exciting to I think there's a lot of opportunity to work on tooling for state charts, and especially to help kind of bring that mindset and the benefits of state charts to non-technical users like designers like myself, product managers, etc.
And we are so glad to have you. And both Anders and Nick have been doing amazing work already this week. We have really chucked them in the deep end, and you'll see some of the fruits of their labor a little bit later on. Now, David, do you want to tell us some exciting news about some stars?
Yeah, sure. And like Judy Kyle pointed in this chat, we have just reached 20,000 stars. And honestly, I feel like this is such a huge accomplishment, especially because XState is not one of those libraries where you have React in front of it, where it's like, oh, okay, well, it's a React thing, so I'm just going to start. It's something where, you know, people really need to take a look and be like, okay, what is this library? What does it solve? Is it interesting to me? And so like the fact that's why I'm just so proud of the fact that as a community, we got 20,000 stars, just so many people interested in what we're working on. So, this is all like the incredible efforts of everyone working on XState and XState tools and Stately. And I'm just really excited that we finally reached that milestone of 20,000 stars. About this time last year, we were at 15,000. So just to give you an idea of trajectory.
Yeah, it is a huge boost. And thank you, everyone who starred us. We really appreciate it. Now, this week, I had a weekly question and we only got one response to it. So I'm going to open it up to everyone now. I think it's a very broad one. And it is ask us anything. So if you have any questions related to XState or to Stately, just ask us. You can ask us in the comments. You can ask us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Discord, as I mentioned before. You can ask us after the live stream as well, if you'd like. But during the live stream would be great because it would be a really nice opportunity for us to answer your questions live on here. So just be keeping questions in mind as we go through some very cool demos. We've got to get to the demos. Everyone is fed up with listening to me talk. We need to get our great demo bunny going on. He gave himself the name once and he's never going to live it down.
Well,
Matt,
not according to you,
us?
definitely. Yeah, so I'm the resident XState demo bunny, and we've been working on something pretty cool this week. We've been focusing on XState test, and it started kind of as like a Monday project, and what we realized is we could actually ship it pretty quickly, and we've worked out an API that we really, really like, and lots of improvements to XState test. So if you don't know what XState test is, XState test uses something called model-based testing. And what that means is we can model like a kind of like a sort of like representation of our application. So here, I'm going to do some testing of the XState docs. I know that we can be on the home page, and let's say we want to get to the like on the machines page, for instance, because there's a page where you kind of have a look at some machines and work out how machines work. So how do I get from on home page to on machines page? Well, I'm going to need to send an event, which is going to be like, there's actually like a little guides sort of section where I'm going to have to add or open guides section. And then I'll be in the guides section open state. Open. I'll add that down here, guide section open. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. And then I'm going to need to go click machines link, and I'll be on the machines page. So let's just actually walk through that on the machine itself, or on the XState docs page itself. So if I click back to here, and I sort of mess up all my windows for a second. So we can see this here. We're on the home page now. So we're on the on home page state. We click guides and it opens, and then we click the machines link here. So we can actually now handle this by sort of like adding these events into our Cypress test, because we're using Cypress tests here. So all we need to do is tell Cypress how to walk through this test, and it will do it for us. So if I go into here and I say events, and I'm going to say open guide section, and this is going to be a function. And this function is going to be cy.contains guides click. And what you'll see is on the right-hand side here is it starts doing it. So it's gone through, we're now on the home page, and it's clicked guides and it's opened it up. If I do this again, bam, bam, and it's clicked it. So now we need to go click machines link. Pilot will help me out. cy.contains machines.click. And let's see if that works. It's walking through it again. It's clicking machines, and now we are on the machines page. And if I want to assert that on machines page is working, then what I can do is I can add this, and I can go cy.url, and then should include machines. Thank you, GitHub Copilot again. So everything's working, and the assertion is working too. What this means is that, like, this is a very, very simple machine, but imagine if I wanted to, instead of clicking the machines link, I wanted to click the transitions link, for instance. So I'll just add this here, click transitions link, and we'll be on transitions page, and we need to add that down there. And we need to add a new assertion. and down here, and then we'll add a new event down here. God, I love GitHub Copilot so much. Now, you notice it's actually running it in 2 separate tests. And what's going on there is it's looking at our model, at our machine here, and it's going, okay, there are 2 separate states that we can end up in. And it walks you through all the different ways that your machine that your app can behave. So this is incredibly powerful. You notice that we didn't have to rewrite any code. I didn't have to set up that we got to go onto the homepage again. I just get all of these tests just rolling out of what my machine or what the model thinks it should test. It's incredibly powerful. And you notice it's pretty simple to set up. All I've done here is I've just got describe my model, and then it's path.description, path.testsync. And we're using testsync here instead of test because Cypress only supports sync tests. David, this was like your brainchild initially. Like, how do you feel about getting this done? This is quite exciting.
Oh yeah, it's extremely exciting, and it is a testament to like just how useful our Idea Mondays can be. I think I was working on this for a few Mondays, and then Matt sort of jumped on, and he's like, this is what sold me on XState at first. I really want to just dive in and get this to the finish line. So yeah, and it was always like a part of our bigger plans too. Like, state machines aren't just useful for application logic implementation, but they're also very, very useful for testing, even if you don't use state machines in your application. Now, model-based testing is, again, a little bit of a learning curve because you do need to know state machines. And I think that's pretty much it, but like also like path generation and stuff like that. But I like to think of it as the natural end result of developers just writing hundreds and hundreds of tests and being like, I'm writing a lot of repeated code, and I know that I'm not covering every possible thing, but I also know that it's going to take me many hours and days to cover every possible way a user could use the application. I wish there was a better way. Model-based testing is that answer, and so that's why we feel like this is going to be, I mean, this is already like a well-known, or not a well-known concept, but model-based testing is a concept that exists, and we just want to popularize it the same way that we popularized state machines, because it honestly saves so much time with end-to-end testing.
It's extremely powerful. And the idea that as well, this might be interesting to you, Nick, is like, you don't necessarily need to use a state machine in order to power this up. You could use something that looks like a state machine, like a Figma prototype, for instance. So a Figma prototype where you have all these different frames and you go from one frame to another. Something like that you could plug into a test model and just tell Cypress how to work it. Does this make sense from a design perspective, Nick?
I think it definitely could. I mean, there'll be a lot of details to work out, but I think that the general approach is very promising.
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Horacio asks, Cypress doesn't support async?
Yeah, that's right. If I bring my screen up again, this is kind of like a little wrinkle of Cypress. Yeah, thanks, Laura. Is that you can't actually do, for instance, it's async like this. So if I try to do this, Cypress will fail, or it should fail. Why isn't it failing? Await, path.async, test sync, test. At least when I've tried it in the past, it doesn't work. Yeah, here we go. So it's testing, it's checking that, yeah, it's maybe Andres, you can go into detail here because you're our sort of Cypress wizard. Why doesn't Cypress support async code?
That's so basically Cypress is re-implementing stuff that doesn't play well with promises. They need to be able to retry them, retry the code. And yeah, like I forgot the real answer perhaps because I didn't think about it for a while. But yeah, like I know how it works. They basically like register your commands over time. So everything gets executed like immediately. And they don't actually, so you won't be able to like step through that code as it goes because everything is registered to a chain and delegated to the runner. I think it comes to like, some history stuff because they were implementing that a little bit before promises were so mainstream, and also to some like restrictions related to like this retriability, observability, and so on in the framework.
Yeah, for sure.
And Judy Kyle asked, Oh. Oh, how about Playwright? So if you're using Playwright or Puppeteer, those are going to run async. So you'll just have to await path.test and you'll be good to go.
Exactly. And model-based testing, it doesn't make any, it doesn't put any restrictions on you in terms of what you choose to test with it. You know, you can use Jest, you can use VTest, you can use Cypress, Playwright, anything basically. So even like Cedric's recommending the Quasar framework, yeah, just plug it in and it will work. You know, it's just we've made it agnostic to any test library that you want to use.
Great. And yeah, Horacio said, when you run end-to-end doesn't work, but component testing does work async as far as he knows.
Cool. I need to check that out.
Very cool. As a quick reminder, you can ask us anything, and so make sure you get your questions in. I'm going to just scroll back to earlier on where Eric decided to queue us up very nicely with, when is light mode coming to the visual editor? And so this is something that we have started working on recently. David, do you want to just give a little bit of background as to how we started thinking about light mode? We mentioned it a little bit last week, but just remind us.
Sure. So I think a couple of weeks ago, a few of us on the team, now thankfully less than half, at the time I would have said like over half the team, was over in San Francisco for Reactathon. And I was giving a presentation where I actually did not demo the editor. It was on use effects, but Eric Rasmussen in the chat, he gave a demo using the visual editor, and it was actually a really stunning demo. The only problem was that it was an outdoors presentation, and our dark mode actually didn't really play too well with the sunlight. So it was requested, and it was actually requested by many, even people who came to the booth and they saw, you know, dark mode. It was sort of hard to show them, you know, just the editor in full use, you know, just in the sunlight. So it was a pretty big request of, you know, Eric and also Kent C. Dodds, that we have light mode for the editor. And it's something that we've been thinking about, like it's had on the back burner for a while. But with all of the feedback, we decided like this is actually an important use case, especially people are going to present this on stage. And, you know, for, you know, some people it just looks better. So yeah, that's what we've been working on.
Yeah, there's many, many reasons to have an option for people to be able to choose what they prefer, as well as benefits for accessibility for both light mode and for dark mode. So we managed to throw particularly Anders and Nick in on this week. And so do you want to tell us a little bit, Anders and Nick, about what you've been working on?
Sure thing. Do you want to start, Nick?
Oh, sure. So, yeah, so, you know, my first day was on Monday and was asked to help with the light mode. And it's like, yeah, of course, that sounds like a lot of fun. And it was a great way to start getting familiar with all the details of the app and the code and such. And basically, we, since we're all in different time zones, we were able to basically work shifts where we work for a while, then pass it off and work for a while and pass it off and work for a while and pass it off. And I think now we're at the point where we have something, at least a first round to show you.
That's right. I mean, I've been assisting Nick, Matt, and Laura in creating this light mode. Nick has done all the designing. I've just been lucky enough to try and implement it. So let me try and share the window here. So this is the usual dark mode we know. And at some point, I think early next week, there's going to be a new menu option for switching to light mode. And if we click it, we're going very bright. And you can talk more about the design, Nick, but it is in an early stage right now, correct?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, you know, we added these styles yesterday. So, you know, it's a work in progress. We'll be improving everything over time. But yeah, I think it's a great start.
There are so many lovely details here. Like, I love that sort of light blue. Is that like a light blue grid on the back there?
It is. Yeah. It's actually inspired by this fancy Japanese notebook that I had. And I was like, that's a good idea.
That's so tasty. And just the little subtle shadows and everything as well.
I like that because when I first started getting into state machines, I was actually using, node paper with like light blue lines just to sketch them out. And this was early on in my career. So that's really nice to see.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, all my notebooks are squares. I love it. It's perfect.
It's so interesting psychologically too. I don't know, Nick, whether you considered this, but Anders, if you switch back over to dark mode, it sort of feels like this is like dev mode. You know what I mean? This is for the devs. And then when you switch back over, it's kind of like, oh, let me just show this to my project manager,
I totally see what you mean. Yeah.
It just feels friendlier, this version, right?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It's the manager version.
It's the manager version, exactly. The presentation mode.
We should call it switch to manager mode instead.
It's also an improvement in the contrast as well, I think, that makes it much easier to read, which I think will really help if we're demoing it on screen too. It's going to be great.
That was another main goal that we had, was to make it more clear, everything more clear.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's amazing work for such a short amount of time. Just imagine what we can accomplish with more time as well. It's going to be so good.
Yeah. And I also just want to brag for a quick minute. These, so both Kevin, Anders, and Nick have started basically this week or the last week too. The onboarding was incredibly quick. Like, I think we had them working on stuff day 1 or day 2. So I know sometimes with companies it takes weeks and weeks. So again, sorry to brag, but I just love how quick our onboarding took.
That's a testament to you guys as well, for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to say that Anders has even started to make it easier to onboard the rest of us with some of the work he's done, making the dev environments easier to use.
Yeah, Anders, why didn't you start the week before I did? Then it would have been even easier for me, although it was very easy anyway.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier that we didn't get very many questions for our Ask Us Anything, but we did get one important question. And David and Maciusz, I wonder if you could answer this. When is V5 coming?
I know.
Yes.
I know. That's
okay,
when it's ready. So that's the usual answer.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of things we need to work on, including the Spawn PR. So this is definitely a work in progress. A lot of things definitely took precedence this week. So hopefully later today I'll have time to just review that PR. That's a major PR that's really going to get us to the, I guess you could call it the start line of an XState alpha release. And so we'll definitely let you all know in the Discord when that is ready. Now, don't expect any full documentation yet. This is for the people who want to be cutting edge and kick the tires and, just give us some feedback. The other major changes we're going to make are going to be done using the RFC process. So Laura just updated the README for that. So if you either want to contribute to the RFCs or, just contribute in commenting, which is obviously the other most important part of RFCs, then I really, really recommend you do so because, again, the major changes in V5 are going to be presented there, or at least like the major future changes. So yeah, hopefully, like I don't want to make this official, but I think as a soft deadline, React Finland is happening in a few months, and it would be pretty cool to at least show off V5 at React Finland. So
you heard it here first. And just mention on that, the RFCs repository is at github.com/statelyai/RFCS. And yeah, I've updated the README, so hopefully it's much easier if you want to write an RFC to know what your aim might be. And also if you want to provide feedback on RFC, we've got a little bit of advice on how to give good feedback in there that should hopefully make it much easier for everyone to know how to participate and be good to each other as well, because that's what RFCs are all about, is good feedback.
Mm-hmm. Laura also included a really informative state machine in there, so definitely take a look.
We're trying to sneak them in everywhere. It's a wonder our onboarding process isn't a state machine yet.
Should be.
Yeah, Horatio's got there ahead of you with some model-based onboarding. Kind of like that, actually.
You know what? It's funny, but it's also a really interesting idea. when it comes to bringing new devs onto it, like we're basically like with Matt's idea for graph-based documentation, we're basically doing model-based onboarding because we're generating the path for you to learn something as quickly as possible.
Yeah. It's always, whenever we bring anything up in Discord, in our internal Discord, David's like, I wonder if we can automate this. I wonder if there's a graph-based approach we can use. Yeah, it's like a meme at this point.
Cedric asks, does the receptionist, will that be released with V5 or after?
That's a good question. It depends how it ties into everything. You know, I think the current design right now, it's possible for it to be after V5 release, but I think it's such an important concept that it might be before. So this is just my way of saying I don't know.
Great. And I just realized that I hadn't mentioned this in our agenda earlier, even though we discussed it. Matt, do we want to show off a little bit about the docs?
Yes,
have you
we totally
got
could.
a demo you could bring in for us?
Have I got a demo I could do? Yes, I do. Yeah, this is actually on your this is on a branch that Laura's been messing with. This is like Laura just went in and absolutely smashed like the redesign for this. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. We realized that we reached 30,000 words in the docs rewrite, which is kind of crazy. So like all of these different bits are now beautifully explained. You can actually, like, if you find an example here, you can actually click and view it in the editor itself, which is kind of bonkers. So you can actually see all of this stuff. Like it does auto layouts, a little dodgy there, but it's like you just get to really, really interact with the docs in a really clean way. And we've even done things like ensure that you can actually inspect the typings on the docs examples too, which is kind of overkill, but also it means that all of our examples are type safe and they will work in TypeScript. And yeah, and you can see we've started to add different examples here too. So for instance, this example is like how you can get the user's camera with XState and just like in vanilla JS, which is pretty cool example. And then all this stuff with React, and we're really keen to add these more examples. It's so exciting just seeing this all come together. And you know, we've got searching with Algolia, of course, all that sort of fun stuff. And yeah, credit to Laura. These look absolutely stunning. I was even just getting people, like random people on Twitter that we've just sort of shared this to privately, going, "Oh my god, these docs look insane."
It's been a really fun project, and I'm trying to simultaneously bring in light mode and dark mode influences from the team's work on the editor as well. So the colors are always in flux, but I think it's really great that we can use sort of all of the team brain power to
totally. Let me just switch to dark mode, see how things go. Oh, it's just so good. Like the fact that like the code samples switch over as well is actually really nice. Ooh, just so good.
Yeah, so if you were in office hours last week, you might have seen our code block light mode, dark mode chat. So this is what we've settled on for now. We may change our minds later. We'll see how we go.
It's pretty tasty. Nice question from Kevin, which is, how did you get the types into the docs? We use something called Shiki 2/, which is, I just got it there, but it's not there anymore. There we go. Which is also one of the most beautiful docs websites I've ever seen. Which basically what it does, this is what they use in the TypeScript docs, is you can do all this various stuff and it will actually compile your docs examples so it's viewable and introspectable by the user that's viewing the docs. So as I say, kind of overkill, but also pretty sweet, to be honest, because it just means we're safe in all these different ways. And
Shiki 2/ also provides the light mode and dark mode options for the code blocks, and you can use any VS Code theme for the code blocks as well. So that's a really handy feature that I dug into in the last week.
Just bonkers.
Yeah, it's so good. So scrolling up and down through these comments right now. Can the left nav be sticky? Asks Hudasale. Perhaps. I've actually got some work to do on that and whether we make it collapsible on narrow viewports and elements like that. So we've still got some work to do on that.
Yeah, if it's sticky, I guess it's because like the docs at the moment, I guess it's sort of sticky in that it just sort of scrolls in here. So that could be something we do.
Yeah, you end up with a double scroll bar in a sticky situation with a long left nav, but I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be a good thing.
Scroll. Yeah, it's not too bad. We should ask our product designer, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we absolutely should.
I wonder where he is.
We're not going to put him on the spot right now, though. It's still very early. Now, Scott, you did have a question earlier on that you split into two, so I am just coming back through to find it again. Will V5 have actors in context that can be initialized in the configuration? It feels a little unintuitive to have to set up an entry action that assigns actors to context instead of just having them built on the initial event.
You currently can sort of, you don't have to actually use the entry action. You can use context. So you can pass like a lazy function to context that will create that actor like initially. So it's sort of doable. And we probably could support like assign actions there, so you could actually like reference an assign action from your implementations object. This would be trivial, I guess. Like it's basically the same thing. We would only have to special case that in the implementation. So I think we could even implement that today, I guess. But yeah, we'd have to like potentially add support for that in TypeGen and stuff. But the idea is interesting, and I was thinking about that exact thing about like supporting entry or rather assign actions from your implementations for the context. So if you are interested in that, the best way to move that forward would be to create an issue on GitHub, and we can discuss that later.
Great. So go create your issue, Scott. Nick asks, can we have a hotkey for search? Very specifically, Command K.
No, of course you can't. You can just search how everyone searches with Control F.
I think it would be a good idea, honestly. A lot of documentation websites and things like that do that, especially with like the command palette thing. I don't know if we want to go full command palette. It might be useful, but I find myself using hotkeys a lot. So
no, yeah, I was joking. Of course, you can certainly have your hotkey.
Yeah. Now, if all the docs were in one page, I would tell people just to use Command F.
What were you saying, Nick?
Oh, yeah, I use this, like the glitdoc search all the time with something like Tailwind, where there's a big API surface that you just don't remember all the values and keys and,
Totally.
I think we've broken poor Nick.
Sorry, Nick.
Carlos asks, the old Viz, will it be updated?
That's something that, we do need to work on. So there's actually a couple of old Vizes. There's the really, really old one, which is still running an old version of XState. So eventually we will deprecate that and point people to the new visualizer and editor. And of course, there is the visualizer as well. So one of our long-term goals is to basically have all of these visualization features available in the editor itself instead of having to maintain two separate projects. So yeah, answer is eventually.
Great. Now new Viz, there we go. That's stately.ai/Viz. Does anyone have anything else they wanted to share this week? Oh, who does else jumped in with another question about the light mode. The Viz orientation could ship with it. Sorry, I'm not getting your question. Sorry, who does help? Anyone else?
Maybe that we are going to ship light mode for the Viz as well, because the Viz is by default in dark mode.
Oh, good shout.
We're not going to. No, we're going to ship just the editor.
Yeah, it's a lot of work changing these one mode only interfaces into two modes. Did anyone else on the team have anything that they wanted to share this week?
Yes,
Matt?
please. I am doing a stream this evening with Jamin Holmgren, talking about XState and how you can use it in React Native. That will be 3.5 hours from now, basically. So on the hour, 3.5 hours from now.
And how will we find the URL for that? Will you give it to me so I can tweet it out from the Stately Twitter?
Will, if I can do it fast enough while I vamp over the top with my voice.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, you can find Jamin at twitch.something. Oh yeah, it's rn.live, which is quite nice. So React Native Live is the setup. And yeah, I'm going to be on for like 3 hours, I think. So
wow.
Hopefully, we're gonna have some
Ooh.
dinner during it, or I don't know, take a break or something.
Wait, for 3 hours, not in 3 hours? Or
For
both?
3 hours, yeah. It's in 3 hours, and it's for 3 hours.
Oh, wow. That's like a marathon. But yeah, I also want to point out to everyone, Matt also did a stream with Jared from Turbo Repo and Vercel yesterday on how Turbo Repo is used in Stately. I watched it last night. It's really, really great. So if you want to get a look at behind the scenes and also how Turbo works, then I definitely recommend you check that out. I have no idea where the link is, but yeah.
It's
was a lot of
okay.
fun.
I will make sure that all of the links appear below the videos in all of our various locations, as if by magic. So that's all for this week,
We have a
everyone.
few.
There's
I
just
think we have
one-
a few questions.
There's one more question
more
I can see
questions?
from Horatio,
Oh,
which is
thank
quite
you.
cool, which is how can we play with the new code you're doing for XState test? Well, we're going to release an alpha very soon, right?
Yes.
We've got a couple more things just to sort through from the API. And we actually found a couple more just before I was about to do the demo too. So yeah, we're gonna cut an alpha probably next week. I think we can commit to that. And it's already been added to the new docs as well. So yeah, exciting times. So very soon.
There was another question by Simon Plack. If I create a machine with the VS Code editor, is there an easy way to share that with non-devs? This is something that we've also thought about, and we do have to plan out as a feature. But currently, I just want to say any machine that you make in your own code base, in VS Code using the extension, that machine is never shared with the outside world. So it's not published to the registry. With that said, we definitely see how it could be useful, especially with collaborating with your team on sharing the machines that you have inside your code base within your own private team. So that's something that we are going to plan out actually pretty soon because, again, it's an important feature. But yeah, there isn't an easy way right now. The easiest way is just to, I guess, have your non-developer look over your screen. I don't know. We're going to make this easier.
Absolutely. Eric, I'm not sure, what was this in reference to? The GitHub PR bots, can that link to the new visualizer? Oh, this is about light mode and the viz, is it?
So the GitHub PR bot, for those who don't know, is an experimental little GitHub bot, which what it does, it looks in any PR code that you have on GitHub. Yeah, he says that's a Pocock thing. And the Pocock thing is that it tracks through all of your code in the PR, looks for any machines that have changed, and posts a visualized version of that machine to the PR as a comment. It's kind of bonkers. We have it like set up on our studio repo as well. And yeah, could it link to the new visualizer? Certainly, yeah. It could link to the editor code as well, since we're passing the layout string. Yeah, there's only so many Mondays that you can work on it. But yeah, Cedric says, I want that. I want it too.
It rules when it works. Surely it works all the time. It rules.
Yeah, I don't know what Eric's talking about there.
Great. So this has been a real bumper demo office hours. So we will look forward to hopefully having you all join us again next week. Thank you everyone for your questions and for your comments. You know that you make these office hours what they are. And thank you to our new faces. It's so great to have you here. We will see you all again next week.
And
Goodbye.
if you're going to Remix Conf, then you will see some of us next week in person too.
So do that.
Yes.
This is the never-ending office hours.
Yep. Okay.
Laura keeps trying to shut it down. We keep rising up.
Party's over.
I'm the person dragging you out of the party. That's what's going on. See you all later. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.